There are teachers whom students respect, and there are those whom students naturally like, almost without understanding why. It's not just a matter of kindness, discipline, or even competence. It's something else, something more subtle, deeper, and in most cases, it plays out in very small gestures that almost no one notices. We often think that a well-liked teacher is simply one who is funny, cool, or too lenient. But that idea is incomplete. Because in a classroom, a student doesn't react only to what is being taught. They react to what they feel, to safety, to fairness, to the way their brain interprets the presence of the adult in front of them. And that's where the subject becomes far more unsettling than it seems. Welcome to the Mind of the Teacher, where we explore the psychology of teaching and the subtle shifts that influence how students feel, learn, and respond. If this resonates with you, subscribe, like, and join us for simple and beneficial learning. Researchers in social psychology and educational sciences have observed for years that a student's emotional connection to a teacher strongly influences their attention, memory, participation, and even behavior. What they discovered surprised many people. In many cases, students don't learn first through logic. They learn first through connection. Even before believing in the lesson, they unconsciously try to determine whether they can believe in the person. And that is why some teachers obtain silence without shouting, respect without threatening, and affection without ever asking for it. Not because they manipulate, but because they activate, sometimes without knowing it, very ancient human mechanisms. Mechanisms linked to trust, belonging, and social survival. And if you want your students to like you naturally, you shouldn't try to be admired. You need to make them experience something their mind recognizes before they can even put it into words. That said, here are 7 things, simple on the surface but powerful when practiced daily. And the 7th is the most subtle and the most powerful of all. The first, greet a student as if they truly exist. It sounds trivial. Too trivial, in fact. Many teachers think that entering the room, putting down their things, and starting is enough. After all, the lesson is what matters most. But for a student, especially at the start of the day, the first few seconds are far from neutral. They answer a silent question. Am I just another body in the room? Or someone who is recognized? When a teacher looks at a student, says their name, or offers a genuine greeting with presence, something simple and powerful happens. The student stops being anonymous. They feel located, seen. And for the human brain, being seen without being threatened is already a form of relief. Some observations in school environments have shown that personalized greetings increase students' emotional availability, especially among those who arrive already tense, closed off, or defensive. What many people believe is that caring for students shows in big actions. In truth, it often begins in a brief look at the door, in a name pronounced correctly, in a voice that doesn't sound mechanical. It's not spectacular. It's almost invisible. And that's exactly why it's powerful, because the student experiences it as something real. And here's where it becomes even more interesting. When a student feels recognized from the beginning, they resist less throughout the lesson. Not because they've become docile, but because they no longer need to defend themselves against indifference. The second thing, speak calmly when everyone expects tension. In many classrooms, people still think authority must be loud, that a teacher who raises their voice naturally commands respect. Yet in reality, shouting often enforces a stop, but not adherence. It may bring silence, but rarely connection. And a student can obey a loud voice while internally shutting down toward the person behind it. Research in behavioral psychology shows that emotional states spread through a group much faster than we think. A classroom reads the teacher's nervous system. If you are rushed, aggressive, or unpredictable, it feels it. If you are calm, clear, and steady, it feels that too. And that stability has an almost strange effect. It reassures without weakness. It gives a sense of control that calms the student's social brain. Imagine a noisy classroom, chairs scraping, murmurs, 2 students talking over each other. A notebook falls. Everyone expects the usual reaction. The sigh, the raised voice, visible irritation. But the teacher pauses, waits 2 seconds, then speaks quietly, clearly, without anger. Instantly, something shifts. Because calm, in an environment expecting verbal aggression, becomes a form of power. Students rarely like the teacher who makes them tremble, but they deeply respect the one who remains in control when they have every reason to explode. It's not just pedagogy. It's a strong human signal. I'm not going to lose control over you. And in the mind of a child or teenager, that signal matters more than we imagine. The third thing, be fair in a way students can feel. A teacher can be demanding, strict, even very rigorous, and still be liked. This often surprises people because we still associate students' affection with permissiveness. But what students struggle with most is not rules. It's injustice. Not limits, but arbitrariness. A student can accept a punishment. What they struggle to accept is the feeling that everything depends on the teacher's mood. For example, when two students make the same mistake and receive different reactions, the class sees it. When some are always interrupted and others always excused, the class sees it. When a teacher humiliates one for an error they ignore in another, the class sees it. And what breaks in that moment is not just the trust of the student involved. It's the invisible contract with the entire group. Research has often highlighted how strongly the perception of fairness influences cooperation in human groups. What they found goes far beyond school. Humans tolerate constraint much better than injustice. In the classroom, this means something simple. Your students may not like the rule, but they can still like you if the rule is clear, consistent, and applied with the same dignity to everyone. And that dignity changes everything. Because a student more easily forgives severity than contempt. They may forget a punishment. They rarely forget the feeling of being treated as less important than others. The fourth thing, correct without humiliating. Here is a truth many people never forget. The teacher they feared most was not always the one who graded harshly, but the one who exposed them in front of others. A classroom is a social stage. Every time a student speaks, it can feel risky. Every mistake can feel like a threat to their self-image. And for some students, that threat is so strong that it completely blocks learning. We sometimes think a little shame motivates. In reality, shame freezes. It reduces the desire to try. It pushes the student to protect themselves, not to improve. When you correct an error precisely but without ridicule, you do more than preserve the atmosphere. You change the student's relationship with failure. You show them that making mistakes in your presence is not dangerous. And here's something almost moving. Many students don't ask to be seen as brilliant. They ask to remain dignified while they learn. That nuance is immense. A teacher who says, "That's not it, but we'll go through it together," does not have the same effect as one who lets a laugh, a sigh, or a remark linger all day. You are not just correcting an answer. You are shaping how a young mind will relate to its own worth. And it's hard not to deeply appreciate an adult in front of whom you can still be wrong without feeling broken. The fifth thing, notice the small efforts no one sees. Many teachers naturally look for big results. The good grade, the correct answer, the successful assignment. That's logical. But for a student, change rarely begins with a visible achievement. It often starts with tiny details. A steadier gaze, a notebook finally opened, a hand raised after weeks of silence, an assignment turned in, imperfectly, by someone who usually gives up. When these micro-progressions go unnoticed, the student feels that nothing is really changing. But when they are noticed, something lights up, not necessarily pride, but a form of hope. The feeling that effort exists in someone else's eyes. Neuroscience research has shown that perceived progress is a much stronger motivator than demanded perfection. The human brain perseveres more when it feels its small advances are recognized, not artificially praised, but honestly acknowledged. Imagine a student who often disrupts, forgets materials, and rarely works. Then one morning they arrive on time, sit down, write 2 lines, try. Many would say nothing because it's still not enough. But an attentive teacher immediately sees that something has shifted. And if they express it accurately, without exaggeration, they offer the student an image of themselves they may have never received. I am capable of something else. That moment seems small. Yet in some lives it stays for years. The sixth thing, give real space to students' voices. Not a fake opening, Not a question asked just to take back control immediately. A real space, even brief, even structured, even imperfect. Because a student who can exist through their thinking in your class no longer just experiences your lesson, they begin to belong to it. A common belief is that to maintain control, the teacher must speak a lot, guide everything, lock every moment. But this model ignores a fundamental aspect of human psychology. We more easily adhere to what we have been able to inhabit. When a student formulates, questions, nuances, tells, searches for words, they are no longer just receiving knowledge. They are passing through it. Experiments in participatory teaching have shown that students engage more when they perceive their voice as legitimate, not merely tolerated. Even very short moments of authentic participation can change the emotional relationship to the lesson and to the teacher. But there is one condition. The student's voice must be received without traps, without crushing looks, without irony, without that terrible feeling of having spoken only to be corrected rather than heard. Because in a classroom, a student quickly knows whether they are invited to think or simply to obey more elegantly. And when a teacher succeeds in this, something rare happens. Students no longer listen just out of obligation. They listen because they feel their mental presence has value in the room. The seventh thing, and the most important, remain human without trying to become their friend. This is perhaps the most subtle and powerful point. Many teachers fall into one of two traps. Either they become so cold that they create distance, or they try so hard to be liked that they dilute their role as an adult. But what students naturally appreciate most is neither coldness nor forced closeness. It is controlled humanity. A teacher doesn't need to share their whole life. They don't need to play a cool role. They don't need to seek affection from the class. But they can show traces of reality. A sincere smile, an honest sentence, a simple acknowledgement of difficulty, a reaction that shows they are a full person, not a mechanical function. This is where many misunderstand. Students don't necessarily like the most entertaining teacher. They often like the one who gives them the strange feeling of being in front of someone both solid and alive. Someone who can hold the structure without shutting down their humanity. Studies on educational relationships show that it's not just perceived competence that predicts student attachment, but the combination of competence and warmth. And that combination is rare. That's why it leaves such a mark. Because it reassures without infantilizing. It guides without crushing. Corrects without destroying. It demands without humiliating. But here is the deeper layer, the one rarely discussed. If your students like you naturally, it won't be because you tried to be liked. It will be because, day after day, their internal system understood something before they did. With you, they can learn without being put down, exist without fighting to exist, and grow without being ashamed of not knowing yet. And that leaves a profound trace in human memory. Because in the end, almost everyone forgets a chapter, a date, a formula, an instruction. But very few forget how an adult made them feel upon entering a room. Some teachers deliver a curriculum. Others create an inner climate. And that climate sometimes changes far more than a grade. So if you are a teacher, the real question may not be, how can I make my students like me? The real question may be deeper, quieter, almost more unsettling. What do my students feel in their body when they see me arrive? Because often, everything begins there. And if you want, in the next video, we'll go even further with a topic almost all teachers have experienced without really understanding. Why some students test you from the very first minutes, even when you haven't done anything to them yet. See you very soon.